Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome into What We Learned Live following Ohio State's 37-17 win over visiting Maryland. A tale of two halves. Ohio State did not look good at all in the first half. In fact, they looked flat out bad. At least the offense did. I thought even though, Maryland led 10-0 early, I wasn't on the defense. But Buckeyes pull it out 37-17. We're going to get into everything that we learned. We're going to hear from the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. In about 10 minutes, we're going to hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen after post-game interviews. I am Dave Biddle. Thank you very much for joining me. So, we thought it might be, a test for Ohio State, and it was. It was too much of a test early, if you're a Buckeye fan. Maryland jumping out to a 10-0 lead. And, again, Ohio State just looking bad offensively. Not looking like average or bad, and but they turned it around in the second half, and they got a lot of help. First of all, the defense played great overall, and that pick six by Proctor was huge. I thought JT Tuimoloau played great. I thought Tyleik Williams played great. I don't know what's happened with Tommy Eichenberg. Last year, Tommy was literally an All-American. I'm not seeing it this year. I don't know what's going on. But welcome into the show. I'm sure you guys have plenty of questions. I'll get to as many questions as I can after we hear from our guests. But I want to go through a few things. I mean, I'm still completely nonplussed about the special teams for Ohio State. I mean, we're curious. They were saying the fake punt was actually a bad snap. We're seeing too many snafus on special teams with Parker Fleming's unit, okay? It's not like he's a grad assistant. He's a full-time assistant coach making $500,000 a year. And Michigan game last year, they didn't know, the long snapper didn't know that the fake punt was on. I mean, yeah, you can blame it all on the long snapper. At some point, that's coaching, right, when you have all of these snafus. So, again, I need to see a lot better out of the special teams. Although Jaden Fielding is a dude. I don't know how much you give Parker Fleming credit for that, but I guess, give him some credit. Jaden Fielding, Buckeyes have their kicker. We already knew that, but we know it for sure. The Buckeyes have their kicker. Jaden Fielding is a good one. And it wasn't just that botched fake punt or whatever. If it was on the long snapper, we'll find out when we talk to our boys afterwards. But then how about the long punt return by Maryland? Almost was broken for a touchdown. They got like a 40-yard. When it looked like Ohio State Ohio State was going to pin them deep, and Maryland gets a long punt return. I just, I don't know what, it's like the quote from The Office. I mean, I literally wrote this down in my notes. It's like, what? Parker Fleming, what would you say you do here? What would you say you do here? I mean, what would you say you do here? I don't know. But let's get back to the positive stuff. So, Kyle McCord, shaky early. Even balls that he was like completing, like the long one to Marvin, completely underthrown. And then I thought Kyle McCord settled in and played really well. The stats look great. And how about Marvin? How about Marvin going off? We're all thinking, well, maybe not all of us. I was thinking, okay, probably on a pitch count, No, he's going to go off for a huge game. Emeka, I'm worried about Emeka, but hopefully what they said on the TV broadcast is true, that it's a bone contusion. It's a knee contusion. That'd be the best news, because when that first happened, I'm like, crap, is that an ACL? Because you said, yeah, he was able to almost walk off until his teammates told him get down, because he was coming all the way over from the other side of the field. But as we all know from watching football, we see it time and time again. A guy is able to walk off, limp off, and you find out it's a torn ACL. That's not something that's going to make you not be able to limp off the field. Sometimes I'm sure it would. I've never had a torn ACL, but I've seen it time and time in football, where a guy's able to limp off the field. So thank God, if that's true, that is a bone contusion for Emeka. Let's hope that's true. It did. Exactly. It did look like, at first I was concerned about it. It did. It looked like he just smacked his knee on there on the turf. Steven with a nice shout out to me. We have a lot of good guys on this beat that tell it like it is. We have a lot of guys on it, but I appreciate the shout out. But this is a good beat. We got a lot of good men and women on this beat. Yeah, exactly. People are talking about a bone bruise is painful, but it will heal. It will heal clean. That's exactly right. If you need to hold them out for Purdue, that's fine. Because they're deep at wide receiver. Julian Fleming with a hell of a play. Hell of a play. Should have been a touchdown. Again, I want to give McCord props because overall I thought, he got the job done. Obviously, he got the job done. Overall, I thought he played pretty well. But man, stats look way better than what they should because his two longest passes were really bad passes. Just Marvin was wide open for 50 yards, and then Julian was wide open. Cade Stover, he did hit on the run for Cade's long touchdown, 44 yards, but Julian made a great play to get down and catch that ball near the goal line. Should have been a touchdown, but at least it was a completion. So good job by Ohio State's wide receivers. Good to see Carnell take it in there late. So, yeah, the game starts out with a disastrous series of events. Ohio State gets the ball. They got a 3rd and 2 at the 33. First drive of the game, third play of the game, incomplete pass. Here we go. 3rd and 2. They're doing some pass, incomplete. Boom. Fake punt stuffed. Is it fake punt? Bad job by the snapper. I don't know, but I'm getting sick of seeing Parker Fleming's unit not step up. And then, boom, a few plays later, they give up a touchdown. We are 2 minutes into the game, and Maryland leads 7-0. It's like, here we go. I'm going to get into this, though, too. Like, there was if I was trying to, what does intentional grounding look like? I would have showed the play that Tagovailoa had in the first quarter on their second drive, where it was clearly it was all three things. He was not out of the tackle box. There was no one in the vicinity. I don't care what they said on TV. There was no one in the vicinity, and it didn't get to the line of scrimmage. It was the trifecta of intentional grounding, and the refs were like, "Nah, it was. We're not going to call intentional grounding there." It's like, what? It's okay. Maybe they're just being, liberal with how they're going to do intentional grounding. Then Kyle McCord gets one that is never intentional grounding. They were trying to throw a screen pass. They covered it, and he's getting hit, and they called intentional grounding on that. And as bad as that was, calling that on Kyle McCord, it was even worse not calling it on Tagovailoa. So that's one of the things, if I didn't go back and look through my notes, I would have forgot about that. That was again, the definition of intentional grounding, and they don't call it. And they're defending it on TV. Oh yeah, there's a guy in the area. I mean, you're talking about the guy in double A deck or whatever, maybe B deck. There was nobody in there. That was the definition of intentional grounding. The only thing you can maybe say is, he was outside the tackle box, but he wasn't. He wasn't outside the tackle box. He almost was. So just a disaster of a first quarter for Ohio State. Down 7-0 at the end of the first quarter. Then they get down 10-0. They're down 10-0. But they came back. So we learned that despite all that, it looked awful. They really, let's call a spade a spade. They looked awful in the first quarter, and they started to turn it around in the second quarter, 10 all at half. And then Ohio State dominated the second half. And 37-17. I'll take that. My prediction was 41-20. I'll take 37-17. Didn't look good early. It looked good late. I'll tell you who always looks good. Bill Kurelic, the dean of Ohio State football recruiting. Dean, good to see you, my friend.
Good afternoon, Dave. I was just wondering, were there any games on today? I was out doing yard work, and I
was watching the Reds. I think they're in the playoffs today.
I gotta have to be off here in a few minutes to watch Cleveland in the playoffs too. So we're gonna have to go quick.
Probably. Our teams are gonna meet in the World Series, right? I haven't really much. At the All-Star break, the Reds were in first place. Even at the the trading deadline, the Reds were in first place. So I assume that they won the Central. Is that right?
Yeah. As the old saying goes, there's always next year.
Ignorance is bliss. All right. Before we get to recruiting, I want to talk mostly about recruiting. Where are you at with this game? You're a level-headed guy. I think I've been saying, hey, I'll take 37-17. That's the bottom line. But I think both things are true. They looked awful in the first quarter, started to turn things around in the second quarter, in my opinion, and then dominated the second half. Ohio State did. As you you take a whole 30,000 foot view of this game. Where are you at?
Well, first of all, I don't like heights, so I don't want to take the view
Okay,
that
let's just
high.
okay.
I was at the Grand Canyon a couple weeks ago, and that was a lot of fun, but it was a little dicey. That's a lot of heights and a long way down to the bottom of that canyon. But now, first of all, I think Maryland's pretty good. I you know, I know they weren't happy about not being in the top 25. I, I would put them in the top 25.
Yeah,
I think they're a pretty good football team. And as
yeah.
you said, they came in and pretty much had their way in the first half in Ohio Stadium. And there aren't many teams that do that. So, first of all, kudos to Maryland. They're a pretty decent team. A couple things I thought. The 4th down and 3 where Maryland, I know it was fairly late in the game, went for it on 4th and 3 inside their own 35-yard line with almost 9 minutes to go to the game. That one kind of surprised me. I know you say, well, you're not here to keep it close. You're here to win. But I don't know if I would have done that. And as it turns out, that probably did not help their cause any. But on the other side of things, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Jim Knowles and the defense. Ryan Day made it really clear after last season that Ohio State's got to stop giving up big plays, or at least not very many of them. And that's been a huge turnaround. Maryland put some points on the board against Ohio State last year. That was kind of a shootout. And Jim Knowles, I know he's an aggressive coach, but he has really managed to figure out a way to limit the big plays. There just haven't been any. Now, we still got Penn State coming up. We still got the team up north coming up. Georgia, of course, was the other team that had some big plays on the board against Ohio State last year. So we'll see. But, I'm impressed with Ohio State's ability to switch their philosophy maybe a little bit and limit those big plays. Kyle McCord, if you'd have asked me midway through that first quarter if he was going to throw for 300 yards in this game, I would have taken the under on that big time.
Yep.
And the guy comes through and throws for over 300 yards. I don't remember his exact stats, but I think he was 1 out of 6 at the beginning, and he didn't miss many passes after that. So I was impressed with that. On the negative side, though, boy, running the ball, that's still a challenge, and that worries me. I just think they're going to have to improve the running game, and not sure how they're going to do that, to be honest. Some of the offensive line recruiting over the past few years is maybe catching up a little bit now. They just haven't not been able to bring in enough elite offensive linemen in the past few years, and hopefully with their 2024 and 2025 classes, they can rectify that. They did get a couple good ones last year, Luke Montgomery being one of them, but they've got to bring in more high-level offensive linemen, in my opinion.
You nailed it. The defense played great, and but the short yardage and just rushing game in general remains a massive concern. I want to focus on the defense for just a moment, then we'll get to recruiting. I'm glad you brought up how great the defense played, because they did. People can say, well, what about this play? What about that play? Listen, like Tagovailoa is going to get his share of plays, but they picked him off twice. They sacked him. They made life difficult for him. And to hold this Maryland team to 17 points and really shut them down after that first quarter. As you said, kudos to Jim Knowles. Kudos to, I thought JT Tuimoloau played great. I thought Tyleik Williams played great. Josh Proctor again, Lathan Ransom. Kudos to this defense. They played really, really well.
And they scored. Anytime the defense gets you a touchdown and limits the other team to 17 points, that means they netted 10 points. So that's pretty darn good. Holding them at 17 and getting 7 of your own.
All right, let's get to recruiting. What's like the main thing that we need to know about recruiting today?
Well, this weekend, Dave, has turned out to be a bigger weekend. If you'd asked me 2 or 3 weeks ago, I wasn't so sure this was going to be a real big weekend. But as it's turned out, it's a pretty decent sized weekend as far as top of the higher board prospects, I guess you'd say. Maybe not the very top of the board guys, but some guys that are certainly high on the board. It includes one official visit, Leroy Roker. He is a defensive back from Florida. that got offered by Ohio State last week, got offered by the Miami Hurricanes last week, and had made an official visit to Iowa, who thought they were sitting pretty good. And then lo and behold, Ohio State and Miami offer the kid right after you host him on an official visit. You think you're getting him. You may not feel that way anymore. So Leroy Roker is a safety making an official visit this weekend. And then the other 2024 guy is an interesting one, Dominique Kirks. He is from Northeast Ohio, Paynesville, Riverside, and he is currently committed to the Washington Huskies. Not many guys go from Ohio out to Washington. Ohio State hasn't offered him yet. We'll see how that goes. They offered Amaris Williams this past week. He's a Florida defensive end commitment who I love that kid. He is really disruptive. And I think that things are going to hinge on Amaris Williams a little bit, but we'll see what happens with Dominique Kirks and if Ohio State does offer him soon and then would push to get him. I also think Ohio State could come out of this weekend with 2 to 3 defensive back commitments, maybe in the not too distant future. We'll see what Roker does, for instance. Blake Woodby, Baltimore St. Francis, 2025 cornerback, and a really good one. He's on an unofficial visit to Ohio State this weekend, and just coincidentally, he's announcing his choice next weekend on October 14th. So that could be one for Ohio State. And then Mark Zachary from Indiana, really good defensive back, really good corner, can play safety, is another one. 2 other guys definitely want to mention. Avery Gatch, he is from that state up north. He's from Michigan, and he is one of Ohio State's top 2025 offensive line recruits or prospects, and visiting Ohio State today. So that is a big one. And then Eli Owens, a tight end H-back from Tennessee. He's another guy that I think very well could end up eventually in Ohio State's 2025 recruiting class.
Nothing changed, I'm sure, today with offensive line recruiting as far as the 2024 class. But what can you tell us about maybe the final piece of the puzzle for the 2024 class for the offensive line for the Buckeyes?
2 words. Jordan Seaton. Yeah, those are the 2 magic words right now. But I always say Ohio State, when they need to create other options, Mark Pantoni and his staff do a great job of creating other options. Nobody was talking about Amaris Williams. And then all of a sudden, Ohio State offers him a scholarship. He's a Florida commitment. He tells me that night that he got offered that I'm probably going to make an official visit to Ohio State. Ohio State had been talking to him for about a month plus, a little over a month, offers him, and he's now a guy very much in the running. But back to the offensive line. Right now, Jordan Seaton's the guy. I think Ohio State and Alabama are probably the top 2 schools on his list right now, but he's still taking visits. And one of those visits is going to be to an official visit to Ohio State a little bit later in the season. And he's the guy that they really want. He could put this class, as far as the offensive line group they have committed, over the top. So he's the big name right now. But again, if that doesn't work out, don't rule out Ohio State coming up with another option at some point.
What do you make of Tavian St. Clair so far this year? I know Bell Fountain, I haven't seen him play. I heard he doesn't have that much around him. I used to cover Madison County football way back in the day. London was just okay back in the day. Now they're really good. They're ranked 5th in the state in D3. So he's lost to Coldwater, a D5 team who's one of the best teams in the state. They're ranked maybe 2nd in the state. London undefeated. They're ranked 5th in the state. So those are his 2 losses. But they got handled in both of those games. What should Buckeye fans think about Tavian St. Clair's season so far, Bill?
Well, I will, by the way, be seeing him against another good program next weekend. I'm going to go to the Bell Fountain at Jonathan Older, Plain City Jonathan Older game, and they have
Madison
a good
County football. Speaking of Madison County football, Jonathan Older.
Yeah, they got a good program, and I'll be at that game, so I'll see him take on another good team. But Tavian, he doesn't quite have the supporting cast overall that he did last year when they went 8-2, I believe. And they went to playoffs, and they were 8-2 before losing in the playoffs. But you look at him, and he is absolutely the real deal. He is 6'4". He's about 215 pounds, has a great arm, makes every throw you can want a quarterback to make. In a way, he reminds me a little bit, Dave, of a guy you kind of like, Joe Burrow, in that Tavian is not he is a throw first quarterback. And I said this about Joe Burrow when he was in high school. Joe is a throw first quarterback that could run. And Tavian's the same way. He can run. He's athletic and he's got enough speed, but he wants to keep the play alive first and foremost, long enough to make the play passing. That's his first goal. And he is really good at that. Great arm, just tremendous improvement from last year to this year. When I saw him last summer to this summer, he's a guy that I think Ohio State fans are going to be very, very happy with in a few years.
So a lot of people have asked me, I'm sure people have asked you, like, about Michigan State and, like, flipping not just Michigan State commits, but guys that are currently on the team in the portal. I look at Michigan State's roster, correct me if I'm wrong, like even a guy like J.D. Duplain, I think could play here. I don't even think he would start right now, even if he'd be eligible immediately, which he wouldn't be. Do you see anybody on Michigan State's roster that you think would be a good fit at Ohio State? Are you hearing anything, including recruits that are still in high school?
Well, Ohio State has been on top of that situation, and as they always are. Right. They do a great job of figuring out where potential coaching changes might come up, and that one came up. And they are definitely looking and have been looking at that situation. And I've looked at that situation. I agree with you. I'm not sure J.D. Duplain. I think he's a good offensive lineman. I'm not sure that he would necessarily be able to come in and start right away, but he's somebody that I would certainly look at. And I know Ohio State is looking at their roster, and we'll see who gets in the portal from that school. But I think that there will be at least a couple guys that Ohio State will take a look at. And the places you mentioned, or we know about, Dave, you might want to look on the offensive line. You might want to look at defensive ends. Those are kind of positions of need for Ohio State still in their 2024 recruiting class.
I'll get you out of here on this. This is both this is a little too much. Greg is not a big Justin Fry fan on Facebook, but we do have a lot of people in the comment section who are nonplussed about the job that Justin Fry is doing as O-line coach, and as he's also the run game coordinator. I mean, it's not just he's the O-line coach, he's also the run game coordinator. What's the biggest problems right now? The running game and the offensive line. And recruiting-wise, if he doesn't get Jordan Seaton, okay, so we got the guys in Ohio. We got a guy from Indiana. Missed out on Brandon Baker. I mean, where are you at on Justin Fry? Because I've talked him up. Where are you at on Justin Fry as an O-line coach, run game coordinator, and as a recruiter?
I think you've got to give him a little more time. I don't think I know our fans can, on occasion, maybe be a little bit impatient, maybe. But I think you've got to give him a little bit more time. I think he's got Ohio State in on some pretty good 2025 offensive linemen. Ohio State is in, I think, great shape. I crystal balled him to Ohio State. Carter Lowe, I know he's in Ohio and he's from Toledo, but still, you got to keep those guys in state. The great players, you got to keep them safe, and they're in good position there. Matty Augustine from Connecticut is another guy that I think they're in pretty decent position with. And there's a few others that I think Ohio State's in pretty good position to land for the 2025 class. The 2024, you got the Armstrong twins, Devontae and Deontay. I think they both can be very good. It's going to take a little time, but to me, they're both legitimate four-star guys. And Ian Moore out of Indiana, I saw him at camp. He is a legitimate mid to high four-star offensive tackle prospect, and I like him a lot. But three's not enough. Jordan Seaton, he is a huge need. They've got to do better than that, and I think Ohio State knows that. They've got to up their game in the offensive line recruiting, and if it doesn't happen in 2025, then I'll be wondering myself some. But let's give him a little more time here.
All right, let's give you no more time because I've already kept you maybe a little longer than what I expected. I said 10 to 15 minutes. This is about 15 minutes exactly. Appreciate your insights, Bill, on both the game and of course, recruiting. You are the best in the business. You're a great man, and get back to watching some football and calling recruits.
Yeah, just like you, Dave. Saturdays, especially when it's a home game, those are work days. So a lot of guys to talk to and get their. I'm gonna be interested to get their vibes on this game from being in the Horseshoe today. And we'll have that on Bucknuts either later today or first thing on Sunday morning.
Looked like a good environment, and the weather cooperated too. So overall, a little drizzle doesn't hurt anybody. So great stuff from the Dean. Check his stuff out on Bucknuts. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it, my friend.
Take care.
There he goes, the one and only Bill Kurelic, the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting. He's fantastic, is he not? He's awesome. All right, we're going to hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen after post-game interviews, which is they're probably going on right now. I'm watching not really watching it. I have the A&M Bama game on, 3-all. A&M at home against Bama. I thought Bama might come in there and take it to them. A&M hanging in there pretty well. 3-all, near the end of the first quarter. But don't worry about that. You guys can have that on the background like me. Focus on what we learned live. All right, I'm going to get to some of your questions that I've earmarked here. I'll get to many more of your questions after the show, or not after the show, at the end of the show. I did star a few questions here. Jim on Facebook. Do I think the O-line can be improved this season or even next? Seems more like a 2-season rebuild. It's interesting. Like, my gut reaction is, can it be fixed? I mean, but then you think back to 2014. I remember thinking that offensive line looked garbage to me in 2014. And then by the end of the year, they're pushing around Alabama. So you never know. I mean, Justin Fry's always impressed me, the way he talks football, and just his pedigree. But, the proof's in the pudding. Last year, they were good. They still maybe weren't as good as I expected, and that was with 3 NFL draft picks on that offensive line, including the best offensive lineman in the country in Paris Johnson Jr. NFL thought he was the best offensive lineman in the country, despite what the Outland Award believed. Can it be fixed? Yes. Will it be? To be determined. Like, I would err on the side of saying I don't think it's going to be fixed, but I'm not ruling it out. I mean, they've got talent up there. I mean, Donovan Jackson's a former 5-star. So to answer your question, can it get fixed? Yes, it can. Again, Greg is not on the getting a lot of Justin Fry comments. I hear a bill. I mean, we're like less than a year and a half into his tenure. The recruiting misses prior to him are not his fault, but I mean, even right now, I'm not seeing much on the recruiting trail that impresses me. You better get guys from Ohio. Okay, you better get a guy from Indiana, neighboring state. When you yourself are from Indiana and played at Indiana, so none of his gets so far have impressed me. I mean, Luke Montgomery's the best one, and he from Ohio. I don't know, man. Missed out on Brandon Baker. You can give all your excuses, but I mean, last time I checked, I mean, wide receivers get NIL deals too, and Brian Hartline doesn't miss. Another O-line comment. Buckeye 80. Yep. Offensive line needs to run block better. Yes. I like Chip. I thought, obviously we learned that Travion was out this game. I am being told it is actually a minor injury by my guys on the ground there. So I was texting Pat and Steve. I'm like, is this really, they're saying it's is this really a minor injury? Because there was some like chatter. It could have been something else because he was like sprinting full speed in warmups. And they're saying, yeah, it is. They just felt like they could win this game without him. No reason to risk it. And they won this game without him. But yeah, I mean, I thought the run blocking was not good. I don't put that on Chip. All right, finally, a non-O-line question/comment. Paul on Facebook. McCord needs to improve, Paul says. His accuracy is not where it should be. I agree. You see flashes of it. I mean, at times he reminds me of kind of like a Bobby Hoying, Joe Germain kind of, when they're on, when they were on. They weren't always on. I mean, go back and look at some of Bobby Hoying's film, his 3rd year, even his 4th year, his redshirt sophomore year, and then his 3rd year or 4th year junior season. Then Bobby Hoying was really good as a 5th year senior. Reminds me a little bit of those guys sometimes, especially Hoying. But he's underthrowing too many guys. He was fortunate today. The stats are so misleading for McCord. I mean, the 2 best examples, as I mentioned earlier, the long pass to Marvin One of the long passes, not the one to the sideline. That was a good throw and a hell of a catch by Marv. That was a good throw. So that's what I mean. Like, we see flashes of it, maybe even more than flashes. We see it like half the time. Like, oh, damn, that was an NFL throw. And then it's like, geez, he underthrew Marv by about 10 yards there. He's lucky Marv was open by about 15 yards. And then the one to Julian should have been a walk-in touchdown. I mean, a good high school quarterback makes that throw. He's lucky that was even complete. Julian did a good job of getting under it and getting his arms under it and getting that long. So it didn't matter. They ended up scoring. I believe they got a touchdown there, didn't they? Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was a field goal. I think they punched that one in, though. But I agree, Paul. He's got to be more accurate. The stats are misleading. I'm not down on McCord. This is kind of what I expected, that they were going to have to, although the running game's not what I expected. I thought they'd have a stronger running game. I was hoping the defense would play like this. So I'm not down on McCord. But now, looking with this running game, he's going to have to play better than what I thought he'd have to play. I said he'd have to play good, maybe not great for them to achieve their goals. He might need to play great for them to achieve their goals if this running game doesn't get fixed. I mean, Justin Fry's got to get on that. From YouTube, LG, this is the reason why we don't get top offensive line recruits, because our offensive line plays like trash, says LG. And the coach isn't coaching them up. More shout-outs for Justin Fry. I'm going to go through some more of my notes. We'll get to more of your questions later. Again, I mean, geez, a phantom grounding penalty on Kyle McCord. I still don't get that one. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. I mean, that was a phantom grounding penalty. It was clearly a screen pass. You never see that called in football. I'll tell you what, that one official near Ryan Day there, he was trying to make it personal. He called a penalty on Day. Then there was the phantom penalty. What was it? What do you call it? Like a pick or something? It was illegal motion or illegal formation or whatever, because like Xavier's trying to get a jump on the play. They never call that. Ohio State was running that all game. Joel Klatt even talked about that on the broadcast. Joel Klatt also talked up Mike Loxley's clock management, how great it was when it was terrible. Mike Loxley put on a clinic of what not to do for clock management. Then one time he made a good decision, and Joel Klatt's like going, "What a great job. Mike Loxley's such a great coach. Look at that." It's like he put on a clinic of what not to do as far as clock management in the first half. But that official, man, that guy, I mean, you can't, I mean, that, talk about childish. I mean, it clearly was like some type of like personal vendetta he had against Ryan Day. The beauty of that was Marvin's touchdown gets called back, which was complete BS. And then the next play, they just get a 5-yard longer touchdown to Marvin. So that was poetic justice. And the Buckeyes able to go down and add a field goal to make it look really good. If you're of the betting persuasion, Buckeyes, the spread, it locked in at 17 at kickoff. Buckeyes favored by 17. They were originally favored by 20, all the way down to 17 with Travion out. And if you had bet on Maryland, you were loving life there for a while. And then Ohio State ends up covering the spread. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, that was ridiculous. I'm glad they called him out. I mean, it's pretty rare you have like the network officials, not just saying that was a bad call, but really calling out his integrity, saying that official is making it personal with Ryan Day. I mean, good on Joel Klatt for that. He made up for that, talking up Mike Loxley. I mean, the end of the first half was everything not to do. I'm not even just talking about the final play of the first half, which was terrible. And you can blame that on Tunga Vailoa. That's fine. But if you're the head coach, you need to make sure you tell your quarterback, do not throw the ball over the middle. Either throw it out of bounds, throw it in the end zone. If you throw it to anybody, make sure they get out of bounds. You run, you get out of bounds. Do not get sacked. Do not get tackled in bounds. Do not throw it over the middle where your guy can get tackled. We have no timeouts and only a few seconds left. That's on the head coach. Even though you can say it's on the quarterback, fine. It's still on the head coach. Because you got to tell your quarterback that. First and foremost. Worst case, you kick a field goal there. Before that, go back and watch. Before they ran out, when they still had 2 timeouts left, go back and watch Maryland's second timeout of the second half late. They let like 30 seconds go off the clock before they called timeout, finally with like 10 seconds left on the play clock. And even then they're like, oh, good timeout by Maryland there to make sure they didn't drain the play clock down. I'm like, they drained it down like 30 seconds. So then even Tunga Vailoa's stupid play at the end wouldn't have mattered if they had those 30 seconds back. He took another their last timeout wasn't a good timeout either. So you burned 2 terrible timeouts to save like 10 seconds. And then you have that play at the end of the first half. I mean, Mike Loxley, I tell you what, I mean, Michael Loxley helped him out. Tunga Vailoa, for a lot of the game, was Ohio State's second best offensive player. Marvin Harrison was the best, and then Tunga Vailoa was the second best. Just that pick 6 to Josh Proctor, and kudos to Proc. I say that tongue in cheek, but man, I tell you what, man, Maryland helped them out because early on it looked like Maryland was clearly the better team, and Maryland's up 10-0, and from there Ohio State took care of business. Get down 10-0, win the game 37-17. You'll take that every time. 37-7 after the terrible start, and give Maryland some credit. Give Maryland some credit. That's a good team. Are they a well-coached team? No. Are they a talented team? Yes. 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 I mean, I would take, Tunga Vailoa, to me, even though like he, had some shaky moments today, I still think he's better than Drew Aller at this stage. I think Aller is going to be a good one down the road. At this stage, I think Tunga Vailoa is better, and I think he's better than J.J. McCarthy. So that was a good, really good job by Ohio State's defense. Really good job. Hell of a job by Marvelous. The marvelous one. It's a huge game by Marvin Harrison. When I was foolishly thinking he might be on a pitch count, he might not play, as much. And maybe that was going to be the plan if they, if this wasn't a dogfight. Ohio State ended up winning comfortably if you look at the score, but I mean, we all know that wasn't a comfortable win. Let's check it with my boys at post-game interviews. Let's see how things are going. See how close they are to wrapping things up. Hopefully, and it sounds like Emeka's okay, but we're going to find out for sure. And I'm sure that's one of the things they're talking about at post-game interviews. But, yeah, it looked like he banged his knee, which obviously is painful, but as we were talking about earlier. But if it's just a knee contusion, I will take that because don't need losing that stud. All right, so we're going to hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen after post-game interviews. I'll let you guys know an ETA on that. But again, I mean, JT Tuimoloau, great game out of him, and Tyleik Williams. Those two are really stepping up. And I thought Mike Hall played well as well. I saw Jack Sawyer set the edge a few times. Jack Sawyer did some things that didn't show up in the box score that were solid today. We've all been kind of hard on Jack Sawyer, myself included. Not like I've never ripped him. I'm just saying like he's not playing up to 5-star status, and he's not. But today I thought Jack Sawyer played solid. He played good football, setting the edge, doing what you need to do, not trying to chase the play and getting out of your lane, like doing what you're supposed to do. Assignment sound football. I saw that out of Jack Sawyer today. I haven't rewatched the game yet. I've rewatched plays, but I haven't rewatched the entire game yet, obviously. But I will do a story on the site on what we learned after I rewatched the game. Cade Stover continues to be a weapon for this team. Love this defense. By the way, there was one play, and you guys can go back and watch. There was a play that there was an incomplete pass that Tunga Vailoa threw in the end zone to Jordan Hancock's man. Go back and watch that play. Hancock was going to play like press coverage against the slot receiver. Davison Igbinosun is like adamantly going back up, back up, back up. It's like he knew exactly what they were doing. Hancock backs up. They throw to Hancock's man in the end zone. Davison Igbinosun called that play. That was a great job by Igbinosun. Let's welcome in Patrick Murphy to the show. Patrick from Ohio Stadium. How was Emeka Egbuka, first and foremost?
I think he will be okay. Ryan Day said after the game that they were still evaluating him, but that they didn't think it was anything long-term. As I was walking off the field at the end of the game, he was talking to somebody and said, I'll be all right. Looked like they did tape his ankle up, but, we just saw Marvin Harrison Jr. play with a pretty bad ankle injury and toughed it out. So I think he'll be all right. Certainly wasn't a pleasant one, though.
Did you say ankle? They taped his ankle up?
That's what it looked like. I couldn't tell if it was.
I thought it was a knee.
It was okay. Well, he definitely had one ankle taped. Maybe he had that coming into the game. But yeah, it sounded like he'd be all right. He was limping a little bit, but they let him stay on the field. They never took his helmet away. So I think it's going to be something he'll have to deal with, but doesn't sound like it's anything long term.
Your biggest takeaway from this game, is it the lackadaisical start from Ohio State? Is it the lack of running game, or is it the strong play from the defense, or something else?
I think you could touch on any of those, really. Look, they certainly did not start well. Ryan Day was perplexed is the word I would use by that. I think you could see that on television from when they kept cutting to him. Even after the game, asked about it, he said, he didn't see anything in practice that would have led to that. He doesn't know what the issues were, but was glad that they figured things out in the second half. I think it's positive that they were able to figure things out. I was writing something as we were watching about how, dire this was and whether this was real. And then they turn around the second half and Kyle McCord only throws 3 incompletions and 2 touchdowns. And, so you can see what this potential of this offense is when it's clicking. Now, the run game, as you mentioned, certainly an issue. Ryan Day was asked about that. He said it's something he's going to have to take a look at, whether it's the way they're coaching it, whether it's the personnel, whether, they need to change something with the offensive line. I think you've got to get this going, and it can't just be because Travion Henderson breaks a 60-yard run and makes everything look okay. You have to be able to run the ball, and they've got to be able to do it better. I think there's a number of issues there, and clearly it's not just one back. And then you mentioned defense. I thought the defense was very good. I think they turned it up. The run game was getting them a little bit in the first half, but to get 2 interceptions, almost had a third. I think it was Steele Chambers late in the game. That's certainly a positive. Coming out of this game, I would say I'm still just kind of unsure of what this team is right now. Like, I think down the road, Tim May says me too. Down the road, when you have to play a Penn State, a Michigan, teams like that, this type of performance won't be good enough. You'll end up getting beat, and they're going to have to figure some things out.
We've got a pretty big audience in here, which I appreciate you guys. Say hi to everybody, Patrick. We got a pretty big audience in here, which I really appreciate everybody making time here on What We Learned Live. A lot of, dare I say, half of the comments, questions are about Justin Fry and the running game. People are not happy with Justin Fry, and I don't blame them. This is not his first year. It's his second year, and I get it. The previous recruiting misses are not his fault, but, I don't know, man. I mean, they've got enough talent. Donovan Jackson's a former 5-star. They've got talent on that line. I'm not saying it's great. And he's also the run game coordinator. So, do you agree with some of our comments on Justin Fry? Where are you at on Justin Fry?
Yeah, it's certainly not. I thought this year there would be a step. Obviously, the offensive line is an issue. They went to the portal to get a tackle. They had to wait until after spring. The guy they brought in Josh Simmons is playing fine, but I think if we were making jokes before the post-game press conference started, if you could use the portal mid-season, I think they might. And it may not just be to replace Josh Simmons. I think there are guys making mistakes across the offensive line. You'd have to look at kind of the grades out there, but Matthew Jones may be the best offensive lineman this year. I think he may be the most consistent, at least. It's certainly an issue. And, when you have the offensive line coach who's also the run game coordinator and the run game isn't going, I mean, this is the lowest. Now, they obviously still have games, but this is as low as they've been, I think, rankings-wise in rushing under Ryan Day. Obviously, at more, that could change by the end of the season, but in terms of the rankings, they're about as bad as I can remember. And I was looking at it before, and I think it's as bad as it's been. So, I think at halftime you had 16 rushing yards. That can't happen. And so, I don't envision a midseason change, and I don't think you're going to see Justin Fry leave this program after this year, because I do think Ryan Day has confidence in him, but it certainly hasn't panned out the way that I expected in year 2, like you said.
Well, yeah, they're buddies, which gives me a flashback to the Tressel era and even some of the stuff that Urban did.
Yeah.
With Bill Davis. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it wasn't just like him and Ryan Day were buddies and that's why he got the job. I mean, it wasn't like they got him like he was like some grad assistant at D3 rank. He was the offensive coordinator and O-line coach at UCLA. But or Chip Kelly, another Ryan Day guy. So I don't know. It just reminded me of too much of a friends and family hiring. So when people are not complaining about Justin Fry, they are complaining about Parker Fleming. I had this in my notes as well. As I said earlier on the show, it's reminds me of the show Office Space or the movie Office Space, where it was what would you say you do here? Like, I mean, he gets paid $500,000, and it's like the special teams are like not good, and like you can blame the long snapper. I don't know. By the way, what did they say? It was a fake punt, or was it on the long snapper? And what the heck is Parker Fleming doing?
It was not a fake punt. It was a bad snap. I went back and looked at it, and I thought for sure it was a fake punt because it looked like the offensive line was blocking a certain way, but that was a very bad play if it was not. I'm going to have you wait and ask Steve about Parker Fleming because he has some thoughts on the special teams that we were discussing during the game. So I'm going to say, look, I'll just say this. It's certainly not good. You have very little in the return game on both punt and kick returns. I do after the games each week, I do what I call the stat pack, which has where they're ranking in a bunch of different categories. The special teams are always, they're 100% on field goals and extra points, I guess. But other than that, the special teams are not highly ranked. So, I don't think you need to be elite at special teams other than making field goals to be really good. We've seen that with Ohio State teams in the past, but it needs to be better, that's for sure. But yeah, get Steve on that one. You might be able to do a whole podcast.
I can't wait for that. I like the tease there. We're going to hear from Helwagen in just a minute. But hey, I will say this, Jaden Fielding's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you ended last season on a missed field goal, right? So you're pretty happy that your kicker is hitting it 100%. Now, he hasn't had to kick a long one in the game yet. I don't know what his long is this season, but he hasn't had a big one. But we did see in practice before the Georgia game last year, I think it was like a 63-yard field goal he hit in practice. So he's got a leg on him when they need him to. Now, obviously that's practice. That's not a game. I wouldn't have put him out there in a college football playoff semifinal to take his first field goal from 50 yards, but I think he's got it in him.
Thank you, Patrick Murphy. Appreciate it, my friend. Great stuff.
Thanks, guys.
He is Patrick Murphy. We will hear from Steve Helwagen in just a moment. Apparently, Steve has some thoughts on the special teams. Looking forward to that. As you guys know, Steve is not one to hold back, so already looking forward to that. Patrick with the tease. Steve better come strong after that tease. Better not be like, well, they can improve. I got to go back and watch this game. There's been some Josh Fryer comments. GOJ, Josh Fryer looked lost, he says. He was blocking the back of his own teammates. Oh, boy. Not good. You know what? I mean, and that's on Fryer. I'm not saying it's not on him, but some percentage of that is on coaching as well. Not seeing that at Justin Fry. All right, Steve Helwagen joins us live from Ohio Stadium. He needs to get situated. Apparently, Ohio State used to try and play special teams. I don't know if they still do, Steve Helwagen. We'll give him a minute. We'll give Steve just a minute to get set up here before we hear his thoughts on the special teams. Yeah, I mean, boom. A lot of people with the shout-outs to Parker Fleming. Jim Jackson saying the offensive line needs improvement. We have to give credit to how much of a difference maker Travion Henderson is. Jim Jackson on Facebook. Heck of a basketball player for the Buckeyes back in the day. Oh, that's not the same Jimmy Jackson. We're going to pretend like it is. Yeah, I mean, Travion's had a good year, and he missed the game today. I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because you got to give Travion his props. He took a lot of heat from fans, and he missed the game today. Steve, you let me know when you're ready, man.
I think I'm halfway fired up right now.
Before I ask you about special teams, like I asked Patrick about this. Well, what's the latest with Travion Henderson? A lot of people were saying, "Oh, is he really hurt?" What are you hearing about Travion?
Well, all I can go by is what Coach Day said afterward, is that he could have played today, but he would have run the risk of aggravating whatever the injury is. Didn't really get specifics on even what this injury is, if it's his foot again or what it might be. We don't even know. So they decided to look big picture and not go through what they went through last year, which is playing him hurt, and he never did get fully healthy or fully healed. And, it wouldn't surprise me if they hold him out of Purdue next week as well, if they feel like they can get through Purdue without him and have him ready to go for Penn State. again, Coach Day talked about like he would be ready for next week if need be. But, I can't say that everything with the running game is just because Travion Henderson didn't play. I think Maryland had a very good plan defensively. They're a pretty rugged team, and they stacked the box to stop the run. Some of the play calling was just absolutely – I don't even know. After several games of seeing the square peg trying to fit into a round hole, you just kind of realize eventually square peg is not going to go into round hole. I mean, they keep running Trianum short side for 1, 2, 1, 0, 3, nothing. And, who's in charge of this? Can I see whoever's in charge? Because this
I talk to your manager.
This is just not acceptable. This is not Ohio State football.
No.
And, they got through it today. I think they wore Maryland down eventually, which they're going to do to 9 teams out of 10. There's a couple teams out there that's not going to work against. And every game I come out of this, I say they got to play better. And if they want to beat Penn State, they got to play much better than this. They want to beat Michigan. They play Penn State or Michigan, you're down 21, you're down 20-0 today. Maryland just didn't have what it took to take advantage of it. And you ain't coming back. You ain't coming back. You ain't coming back unless you just throw it up for grabs for Marvin again 6 more times and let him go bail your ass out. It just
even then, yeah.
It just defies description what we saw here today in so many regards. The first half was, there are words that I could use that I don't like to use. And 20 years ago, I would have used a word to describe this. It's not politically correct to use that word anymore in regards to anything for what people normally think of it, what it pertains to. But that's what the first half here today was. It was that word. It was a team that wasn't ready, didn't have its head in the right place, wasn't physical, terrible coaching, terrible decision-making, terrible play calling. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong. I guess it wasn't a fake punt. They said the snap – I've never seen this. A snap magically goes out of the long snapper's hand right to the up back, but it wasn't a fake punt, apparently. I've never seen that. I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that. It hadn't rained yet. I don't even know what that is. What is that?
They also screwed up a punt in the Michigan game last year that pretty much cost them that. Who knows if that goes well, that they might win the game.
This is your all-star long snapper, Furlman, though. I mean, there's not supposed to be any mistakes with Furlman.
But Parker Fleming, though, the special teams are just a mess under his watch. I
tweeted out, you have Emeka Egbuka standing on like the 35-yard line, and you're down. You need a good return. Get it to the 50. Get it to plus territory. Make a guy miss. There's nobody around, and he's out here just fielding it. Well, then they hold somebody. They hold somebody on a fair caught punt. Not even one that's returned. There's no holding after he's caught it. Now I've got to grab a hold of somebody so he doesn't tackle him. These dumbasses are holding people running down the field. This is the dream team that they scream about at practice. Dream team. Whatever it is. It's so bad you can't even quantify it. Okay? Hold on a fair cut punt. That's how you lose games. Stupid things like that. That puts them back at the 13-yard line. Good luck. 87 yards. Good luck. Good luck with all of that. Then they punt it the other direction. Guy fields it in traffic. There's an Ohio State guy standing right here. Does he fair catch it? No. Not only that, he gets like a 20-yard return, and now they're in plus territory. You can. They had a penalty on that. They had 5 men in the backfield, illegal formation on a punt, and you give them an extra 5 yards, and now it's in plus territory? Are you kidding me?
This guy, and he's making $500 million. Where did they put him? Is he like a capital or something?
The whole
Where'd they
thing
get him from?
I don't know. The whole thing was he was in-house as like the coffee guy. And then
Quality control as the coffee guy.
They made him the special teams coach. And I personally am not as down on the special teams as a whole, but that was endemic of this team today. Didn't have their head screwed on straight, played with their head up their ass for 30 minutes, and were lucky whatever the halftime score was. I don't know, 10-7, 10-10. Who I don't even
10-10. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan has them down 31-10 after that type of a half. Let me just clue you in. Michigan has you down 31-10. Mike Loxley was like, okay, I see your blitz on third. Jim Knowles pulled the same dumbass blitz on 3rd and 8, pinned them back deep in their own territory as he did against Michigan. And guess what? Tagovailoa made him pay. Converted it, moved on down the field. Lucky for them, though, on 4th and whatever, they put the backup quarterback in the game, and he tries to run it on an empty quarterback draw. Everybody in the stadium knew that was what he wasn't going to throw it. Is that guy going to throw it? The backup quarterback's going to throw it in that situation? No. So Mike Loxley was like, I see your dumbass decision on 3rd and 8 pinned us back deep in our own end, and I raise you a 4th down quarterback draw with the backup quarterback in an empty formation that everyone in the stadium knows he's going to keep it, and we got no gain. So I don't know, Dave. They win 37-17. Texas loses, I guess. Again, I'm in a bunker here. I have no idea what's going on in the outside world other than I think Texas lost.
They did.
So
Yeah,
Ohio State's going to move up to number 3, and it's like, are they really the number 3 team in America? Not in the first half today. They're like the number 43 team in America in the first half. In the second half, they played like the number 3 team in America. Complementary offense, defense. The defense, I give Jim Knowles a bunch of crap, but they did it. They did a number on Maryland in the second half, and to me, they played outstanding football. And for Proctor to finally catch one and bring it back to the house that was a Hooker versus Michigan type touchdown pick 6, because that they needed that desperately. They needed to flip the energy. I mean, there was nothing going on here at Ohio Stadium. You could hear a pin drop. There was nothing happening here until he makes that play, kind of flips the energy a little bit. And Lathan Ransom had one later. JT Tuimoloau had a sack and was pressuring the quarterback. A lot of good things happened. That first half, Ohio State was 1 of 7 on 3rd down. Maryland was like 6 of 9, something 6 of 10. And Ohio State had 6 penalties for 50 yards. Maryland had 1 for 5. So if it could go wrong in the first half, it did. Thankfully, Ohio State played 4 times better in the second.
I'll get you out of here. People are wondering about Emeka Egbuka. We touched on this early in the show. We're going to get Steve's comments on that. I will say one thing, Steve. I agree. Like, Ohio State doesn't look like typically in a normal season the number 3 team in the country. But I don't
think it's a normal season.
I don't see an elite team, so I'm okay with it. I feel like Ohio State, everybody's flawed. If Ohio State can just stay healthy and like win close games, they have just as good a shot as anybody, in my opinion.
Hey, credit to Maryland. This is the best Maryland team in 20 years. So Tagovailoa, he is for real. He showed me so much today. They came up a play or 2 short of really grabbing control of this game at the wrong time. They did some dumb things and gave it back to Ohio State. Emeka Egbuka, he said after the game, coach did, he doesn't feel it's a serious injury. It needs to be evaluated. I don't know. From watching the TV, was it his ankle? What happened? I
thought it was his knee. Pat was saying that he thought his ankle was getting taped. I thought it was his knee, and they said it was a knee contusion.
Okay.
I was thrilled when they said that, because I'm thinking, man, knee contusion. Not that that's fun, but man, I'm just glad it wasn't like an ACL or even like. I
agree. I want to know more, I guess, about what's going on, and probably we'll have to wait till Tuesday to get the lowdown. But great to see Fleming make a play or 2. Great to see Cade Stover make a play or 2 as well. Cade Stover was huge. He helped pull their bacon out of the fire once again today with a couple big catches, and when they had to have them. And all's well that ends well, Dave. Any as John Cooper used to say, goes in the left-hand column, guys. Goes in the left-hand column. So I thought about that saying quite a bit.
5-0.
Yeah. Speaking of 5-0, Ryan Day 5-0. That's 50 for him. And I guess he is tied for like the 5th or 6th fastest coach since 1970 to get to 50 wins nationally in his career, with guys like Dennis Erickson and some other really, really good good coaches that were on that list. Maybe even Barry Switzer may have been on that list.
Jimmy Johnson, maybe.
Jimmy Johnson, yeah, some real top of the line dudes. So that won piss pot full of games. So I think that's what we're looking at with this guy here, RD here at Ohio State. But second fastest at Ohio State, the 50. Urban did it in 54 games. His first 4 seasons combined, just contained 50-4. And I was joking with my friends today. Coop, he went 4-6-1 in his first season in 1988. And not far from here at St. John Arena, one of my friends, his dad had a van, and it was decked out, Ohio State van. It was in the Byers commercials because they tricked it out for him, and then they put it in commercials, and we would tailgate there every game outside St. John Arena. They still bring it to the games 35 years later. That's all it's used for, is to come up here to Columbus from Circleville. And I told my friends, Coop went 4-6-1 that first year, and now here's Day in his 5th year, only has 6 losses. And it just kind of puts it all in perspective. We didn't have winning football in the late 80s here. We didn't. We had each other. We had togetherness. We had beer. We had that van. That's what we had. And when we saw success in college football, it was when we were at the Beer Stube on North High Street, watching it on television, watching Notre Dame win a big game, and Florida State win a big game, and Miami win a big game, and Michigan, and USC, and all these teams in the late 80s that won championships, winning games, on that. When we wanted to see winning college football, we had to watch other teams play on television. So that'll just tell you where things have come from in Ohio State lore in 35 years, that now, a 3-loss season, they'd burn this place down if they lost 3 games in one season. So it's come a long way.
Steve, great stuff. The people in the comments are loving it. I'm loving it too. You've been wrong. I love that you don't hold back. I love it. Great job,
Steve. Got to get better,
it.
Dude. Got to get better, because this isn't going to pass. This is 10-2
right.
If they don't get better. That's what this is.
Absolutely. So, you can't have this product on the field against
Got to be able to run the freaking football, Dave.
Got to have to.
62 yards on 33 carries. Woody is doing bed spins. This isn't right.
Yep, you can beat Maryland at home like this. You can even beat Maryland by 20 at home like this. You ain't going to beat Penn State and Michigan like this.
Just think if the weather's bad next week at Purdue. Just think, we've been there.
They never have any problems at Ross-Ade Stadium, though.
No, it's always a place you go in and win 50-0. Yeah.
Smooth. You can just go out there and just throw your helmets on the field, and the Boilermakers are just like,
hey, that's what it looked like today. Looked like they just tried to throw the helmets on the field today, Dave, and thankfully, whatever. Oh, well. All right, dude.
Appreciate it, my man. Good stuff.
We'll catch you later.
He is Steve Helwagen. Him and Patrick will have stories, videos, pictures from the game. There, Steve's game stories are already up. They'll have stuff from post-game interviews. Get on Bucknuts. A lot of that stuff's free. Steve's game story. And he'll keep adding to it now that post-game interviews are over, and I'm done bugging him with the post-game show. How about Steve coming strong? Just boom, boom, boom. I don't disagree with anything he said. He came strong. I think most of you are agreeing with him as well. And I get it, right? I mean, Maryland's a good team. I think all this can be true. Maryland's a good team. You beat them by 20. That's awesome, especially a year like this. You're already undefeated so far. There's not an elite team in college football like we've been talking about. Just take care of business. Buckeyes will be where they want to be. Okay, that's true. I believe that 100%. I also believe, like Steve articulated, this is not going to get it done against better competition unless they just crap the bed. But Penn State, this is the best Penn State team that they've had in a while. Michigan is Michigan. You got to go to Ann Arbor. And then if they are able to get past those games, get to the playoff, and then today's performance is not going to get it done against whoever you play in the playoff. So they have to get better. Particularly, they have to get better with their run game and special teams. I'm very encouraged by this defense. Yeah, they weren't perfect today, but man, I'm very encouraged by this defense. I mean, Maryland's a good offense, really good. Tagovailoa is a very good college quarterback. He picked him off twice, made life difficult on him, didn't give him any big plays. only gave up 17 points. And that, they gave up 17 points. Really, they gave up like 10. One of Maryland's touchdowns was off that stupid, bad snap on the punt. We now know it wasn't a fake punt, allegedly, and it was just a bad snap. And I don't know what's up with Parker Fleming coaching up long snappers. I've never seen so many gaffes in like an 8-game period going back to last year, as we've seen with long snappers in Ohio State. So short yardage, running in general, and special teams, they've got to shore that up. But I love what I'm seeing out of the Silver Bullets. Love it. Absolutely love it. Other than Tommy, which is a surprise, because Tommy was a second-team All-American last year. I'm just not seeing it this year. He's missing tackles. He's not playing as physical. I don't know what's going on with Tommy. I don't know what that shocks me, because I remember thinking Tommy didn't look very good in 2021. He was a third-year sophomore, and then he had that huge game in the Rose Bowl as a defensive player of the game. It's like, wow, maybe the light came on for Tommy. And then what happened last year? From game one, he was just a wrecker. He was just wrecking plays and making big plays. And even when he wasn't making big plays, he was just so steady, very rarely missing a tackle. Tommy Two Thumbs had the broken thumbs and still was out there making plays. This year, I don't know what's going on with Tommy. I don't know. Hopefully it's just because it was the same. It wasn't just a one-game thing. He was pretty bad against Notre Dame too. Hopefully it's a 2-game thing, because we know what Tommy can do. We've seen it. So my gut is I'm not that worried about it, because I know he's got it in him, and it wasn't just a flash in the pan. He's done it for a whole season. It wasn't just the Rose Bowl or a couple games last year. It was the Rose Bowl and pretty much all of last year. But Tommy looks like he's regressed, which is shocking, because James Laurinaitis is now working with him. I thought that'd be like a perfect marriage. Like, those two guys are just like, remind me of each other. Yeah, I'm old enough where I was on the beat when James Laurinaitis was in high school. We were calling him for the old Bucknuts front row radio to get him on when he was in high school. When people were like, who's this 3-star linebacker that Tressel's recruiting from Minnesota that nobody wants? And James was committed to Minnesota at the time, and things worked out pretty well with James Laurinaitis. I still think that was a home run hire to bring in Laurinaitis basically as linebacker coach, even though he's technically a grad assistant. I don't know what's going on with Tommy. I thought Tommy was great last year. I thought Laurinaitis would elevate him even more. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I love what I'm seeing out of this defense. Overall, I think they're playing excellent football. And Ohio State's going to have to win these games against Penn State and against Michigan with their defense. It's going to be relatively low scoring, like we saw against Notre Dame, even to an extent today. Even Ohio State put some points up late, it was relatively a low scoring game. I mean, Ohio State's down 10-0 early, then it's tied 10-all at halftime, and Maryland goes up 17-10 to start the second half. So even in the second half, they're trailing 17-10. Ohio State is. And then from there, Ohio State dominated. So give them credit. They're trailing 17-10, and they dominate from their 27-0 run. So give Ohio State credit where it's due, but also call a spade a spade. They've got a lot of work to do if they're going to achieve their goals. And it's fortunately, it's a year where there's not an elite team in college football that I see, at least. Georgia's not elite. Michigan's not elite. I mean, Michigan's very good. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're elite, though. I don't know if they're as good as they were last year. Last year, they weren't elite. Just ask TCU. But Michigan's good. Penn State's good. There's a lot of talk Texas could be the elite team, and they got lost to Oklahoma. So it's just not – there's not an elite team in college football this year. So, but that doesn't mean Ohio State can just do what they did today and get by. They have to be markedly better than they were today. Markedly better. All right. Appreciate you guys rolling with me here. What we learned live. Again, big audience in the house. Appreciate you guys very much. All the comments, questions, anybody who's just watching, listening to the podcast only version. Really appreciate you making time to join me. Thank you very much to Bill Kurelic, the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting. Get on Bucknuts. He will have all the recruiting coverage that you'd ever want and more. Bill Kurelic, the best in the business. So thank you to the Dean. Thank you to Patrick Murphy. Thank you to Steve Helwagen. And thanks to all of you. I am Dave Biddle. This has been What We Learned Live following Ohio State's 37-17 win over Maryland. The best thing about being 5-0 is the chance to go 6-0. I'll see you next week on What We Learned Live. I'll see you all week on Bucknuts, on our, I almost called it Front Row Radio since I mentioned that earlier, on the Bucknuts Morning 5. But I'll definitely see you after the Purdue game next week. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, thanks to Bill Kurelic, Patrick Murphy, and Steve Helwagen. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day and weekend.